Good evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in this hybrid Wigtown Book Festival for 2021. My name is Eleanor, and I have the great pleasure of having a wonderful chat with Sara Barnard for the next approximate 50 minutes, because, of course, we need to leave some time at the end of the next hour for you and your wonderful questions. So thank you for joining us on this Sunday. I hope you're all cozy with a cup of tea. Wherever you are, do feel free to share with us in the comment box on YouTube there where you're joining us from. Sara is in Brighton and I'm in Bristol, so especially if you're somewhere that starts with a B, it's going to be our new theme for this evening, spontaneously. But it's always really great to know where people join us from, especially with the upside of having a more virtual event. Of course, we all, Sara and I, together almost certainly look forward to hopefully being able to be in Wigtown in person in the future, which will be really, really wonderful. So a little bit about Sara. Just going to give her a little bit of a background. I'm going to tell you all about you. Sara lives in Brighton, and she's always loved books and all book things, apparently. You've been writing ever since you were small. Apparently you used to use your old family computer. I don't remember Amstrad computers.
They're very old.
Was that the green font on the black screen?
Yes.
Yes, my mum had one of those. Remember getting out the boot of the car and it's like the size of...
They were huge.
So big, so big. Oh, the 90s. Feel free, everyone, to share comments about the 90s in the comments there, because Sara and I can certainly relate to that. So yeah, you've always had a wonderful love of books and traveling, it seems, which is very on point today. Yeah, you're trying to visit every country in Europe. Is your total still 13?
I think it might be slightly more than that by now, but I'm not sure exactly.
I'm just saying your current biography says 13, so you might want to. I mean, you could have a thing in brackets saying the number has currently had to draw to a close due to circumstances beyond your control, but we won't talk about that. We won't talk about that. What we will talk about is how you worked in India, but you also lived in Canada. Oh. I wonder how relevant that's going to be today, because everyone, we're going to be talking about the wonderful Destination Anywhere. Look at that. I love your cover designs. I think the way they all match.
So bright and cheerful.
They're so lovely. We just to give everyone a bit of context, Sara and I have met each other before and we have done events together before. So added bonus, this will be able to match the rest of the set, the ones that I have, which is always very nice. And you can, of course, buy Destination Anywhere in the Wigtown bookshop as well, so stay tuned for that, or you can find it in your own local library, because libraries are wonderful places. Wow. They are. Apparently you're inspired by what ifs and people. You like people watching? Is that something you do quite a lot? Well,
yes,
when permitted.
Just thinking about imaginary people, really, more than anything.
Very nice, very nice. So this is also your 5th YA novel.
Yes. And
then in addition to that, you've got the Flawed collaborative novel.
Yes.
As well. Brilliant. Is there anything else that's coming out soon, or is that
There's nothing that's been announced yet.
Oh, okay, great. You can't answer that question.
There are other books coming, yeah.
Okay. Stay tuned, everyone. Stay tuned. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me today, and welcome to Wigtown Book Festival. And I was actually wondering if you would paint the picture for us of a little bit of Destination Anywhere, because we don't want to give anything away. It's going to be spoiler free, everyone. But Sara has a very specific, very brief little bit that she wants to read, to tell you a little bit more about the book.
Yes. So I also have a copy. I have several copies. And so what I'm going to do is going to do a very quick reading. It's right from the very beginning of the book, so no worries about spoilers or anything. And I think I don't usually have readings that work so perfectly for an event, but I think this one really does set the scene of the book. So I will just read well, it's not really a prologue, but just the beginning of the book. It's called The Plane. Boarding complete. This is it. I'm out of time. I stare at the send icon on my phone screen, willing myself to press it. My heartbeat, already way faster than usual, thunders harder in anticipation of that one tiny moment, the final step in setting all of this in motion. Despite myself, my thumb swishes downwards, my eyes flicking to the start of the email I've been drafting since I walked out of my house, got on a bus, went through departures, boarded, found my seat, and buckled up. Mum and Dad, don't freak out. I know you will anyway, but don't. There's no point. By the time you read this, I'll be in the air. You always say how safe flying is, Dad. So you don't need to worry, because when you read this, I'll be the safest I've ever been. I'm doing this because I have to go. I just have to go. I tried to tell you about how I have nothing left and I have to go, but you weren't listening. Now I think you'll have to, because right now I'm on a plane. I'm on flight BA037 from Gatwick to Vancouver. You'll be able to look it up, see? I'm not trying to lie or hide anything. You know exactly where I am. I just had to go, so I'm going. If you've been paying any attention, you know why. I'll call you when I land. I love you. Peyton. P.S. I'm sorry about using your credit card, Dad. P.P.S. I'll pay you back.
That's a really brilliant start as well. You get so much in there right from page one. An really excellent start. So when thinking about Destination Anywhere, you say later on in your acknowledgement that it came from an adventure that you had personally experienced. Spoiler free, of course, but do you want to be able to share a little bit to everyone about where that started from and how you wanted to draw on that experience and add it into the book and create Peyton?
Yeah, so I was very lucky when I was at university. I did a 4-year course and my third year was a year abroad. I did an American Studies degree, so American literature, and it came with a year abroad, and you got to choose from all of these universities all over North America, and nobody put Canada as their first choice. It was all American universities. And I got assigned the University of Victoria on Vancouver Island, which I'd never heard of, didn't really know anything about Canada. And it was just the best thing that could have happened. I'm so glad I had the opportunity and that I got to go there, because Canada is the kind of place where I think for a lot of people, you don't think of it first to be where you would go. So I'm really glad that I was given that opportunity that I probably wouldn't have chosen myself. And just the Western Canada is just incredible. It's beautiful. The people there are so kind. It sounds like a cliche, but it's true. They will help you with anything. Yeah, and I met people from all over the world. I was friends with international students mostly. International students tend to sort of stick together, which is something I didn't realize until I was one. And so, yeah, I made friends that I still have now from all over Europe, New Zealand, Australia. And then, I mean, it seems really obvious now that I was going to write about it one day, but I didn't think at the time that I would. And then when it came to writing this story, and I knew Peyton went somewhere, but I didn't know immediately where she went. And when I was trying to think of where shall I send her, it became more and more obvious. And I wasn't sure about doing it at first, because I thought people would have the same thought, like, why Canada? But now I've written it, couldn't have been anywhere else. So I think, I mean, I had so much of the joy, and I think I say this in the acknowledgements actually, so much of the joy in the book comes directly from how I felt and how I feel looking back on it, especially, and just how lucky I was to have that experience and to meet those people. So I wanted to try and get as much of the joy, because it's a book of two halves. So there is a lot of not joy in it, I would say, but then there is some joy, and that comes from what I experienced.
That completely came through to me anyway. When Peyton is being introduced to certain elements of Canada and seeing particular views, or being told there are things that she has to experience, you can really feel that there's an absolute personal kind of first time experience coming off the page there, which is, I was like, surely she has to have gone to Canada, because if she hasn't, then she's done this so well. She's probably borrowed someone else going like, you have to tell me exactly what you felt when you saw this. But no, that certainly came through for sure. So you said something interesting actually there, that it was the question that you were asking yourself was, where do I send Peyton to? And what I thought, what would be nice to maybe have a little bit of a chat about is the fact that the traveling elements, the fact that Peyton was going somewhere, was that something that actually came to you later after the other part of the book, which we won't talk too much about, because that's a big chunk of the plot, and everyone should read all that for themselves, because obviously it's such an important part of what Peyton goes through as a character. It's a real what I mean, how would you call it? Would you call it life experience? Because
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because it's the experience of going through secondary school and just, I mean, this is something that runs through the whole novel, and knowing the way that you write, this is probably intentional, as opposed to, oh, I didn't really think about it until like, do you know, when authors are like, oh, when I read back, I realized I'd done this really clever, you know, life lesson thing in here. The idea that, you know, you've got a book of two halves, but it's also all about when you're in your mid to late teens, and the idea of who you are as a person, who you want to be, and who you want to be friends with, and how you want to be perceived, which are some huge life questions in there.
Yeah. I mean, was that deliberate? Yes, it was. I think there were some things that I wanted to do with the idea of friendship, and that I really wanted to get across, which is stuff that I didn't learn until my late 20s, I would say, which is stuff that seems really obvious, but I think is quite profound when you do realize it for the first time, which is that you don't have to just be friends with people who are like you. They don't have to be the same age as you. They don't have to be from the same place as you. And because of the school environment, you grow up thinking that that's true because that's who you're put with. But actually, that's quite an unnatural thing. Like, why should you just be friends with people who are the same age as you once you're not in school anymore? It's crazy. Because when I was in my 20s, I met a group of feminist friends who were all older than me and turned out to be some of the best friends that I'd ever had. And it was like, until then, I hadn't ever thought about having a friend who was 10 years older than me, because it was just something that doesn't really happen a lot when you're younger.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to try and put that across, and in what I hope is quite a natural way, because it sounds quite like I want this to be the message. But I really did want to show how you can expand your world when you stop thinking in these quite limited terms, which is what I think school does give you. It gives you quite a limited understanding of what other people can be and who you can be, because it's not just the people that you meet are kind of everything, and they can help you see yourself in a different way. Because so much, especially if you have a bad experience at school, you believe what you're told about yourself, which is often the most damaging thing. It's not so much that other people are saying it to you, it's because you believe it, because you've never been given a reason not to. Nobody's come along and said, you know, they're not actually right about you. They don't know you any better. They're wrong. And so when you start to internalize these things that they're saying, and you start to think they've come from you, and then you grow up and you've got all these thoughts about yourself, and it takes you a decade or two to realize they're not actually true. They're just stories someone's told you that you believed. And so I kind of wanted to get that in there for Peyton, because it's such an important thing for Peyton to learn, because she's had such an awful experience at school. And she's resisting it so hard, but she also believes all of these things that she's been told. She is somebody who people don't like, which isn't true. And so here come along these people who don't know anything about her. They're from all the different, they don't know each other, and they're kind and they're interested, which is what most people are. You know, most people you meet are going to want to get to know you, because that's a very natural human thing. So yes, it was very much, I think I've forgotten what the question was, but
it was okay. There was a lot in there.
I was doing that. Yes, I was trying to do something with those friends that she makes, and I wanted them to be different ages. I wanted them to be from different places, and for that to be part of the friendship, the fact that they were all different.
Yeah, no, I think that certainly does come across, and I think there's a particular scene which is, you know, she's getting off a bus and they're all there and they're waiting for her, and it's that default thought that she says, like, oh, this has to be an accident, like they didn't intend to be here for me, they're here for some other reason as well. You know, that, you know, it's trying to, like you say, she's not used to people doing things just because they like her. And I mean, yeah, I think you're right. At least for me as well, I definitely learned you know, a lot more about that in my 20s. You know, for me, I have two sisters and we're relatively close in age, and the idea of being friends with someone who is the same age as my sister when I was a teenager was crazy.
Yeah,
it's like, you're 4 years. So I remember, like, a really good friend of mine, when I was living and working in Edinburgh, I think I realized, oh my god, you're the same age as my sister, and she's like, what difference does that make? And I'm like, doesn't make any difference. Cool. But I just had this realization after we've been friends for years. Yeah, so age, and just, I think that's, like you said, and I think this is even a line in the book, the premise of school and putting a bunch of kids the same age in the classroom and then being like, you know, let's see how you all get on. So it's, you know, it's kind of like an odd social experiment.
Yeah, and we just don't question it. But yes, it really is. It's like, you're all from the same place, you're all the same age, you'll be fine. No.
No, not really. But no, it was no, that absolutely came across. So, I mean, travel is obviously a huge theme in the book, as we've been referencing before, and Canada was something that you personally experienced, and that was something that you put in there. That idea of having the friends that she makes when she's on this journey come from all these different countries and these different backgrounds, and each have their own kind of stories to share. The way, I suppose, the position that people put themselves in, or how everyone feels when they first arrive in a hostel. So it's an almost like a blank slate and a blank page. And was that something that you felt that Peyton really needed?
Yeah, definitely. And to not have thought that, like, she doesn't go there because she thinks, oh, a hostel is going to be a great place to make friends. She's already disregarded the idea of friends by that point.
Yeah.
And then she just winds up in this hostel thinking she's going to do this whole trip by herself. And then because it's a hostel, there are a lot of people who are doing the same thing, like not necessarily running away from anything bad, but are looking for, like they say, like some kind of freedom, or trying to find something, or even if it is just traveling, it's to have an adventure and to share it with other people. And that, yeah, that's, a hostel is a great place to, if you were open to that, that's a great place to be. I mean, I think it takes a certain kind of person, and I will say that. Like, I've been in hostels, I've done traveling, and I would not have been able to do what Peyton does. Like, Peyton's quite a different character from me, I think. I think even just getting on that plane, that decision that she makes, I think you're always going to be, there are two types of people who would get on the plane and people who wouldn't. And I'm definitely one of the people who wouldn't. And I think that kind of,
in the situation that Peyton finds herself in specifically, you mean?
Yeah, just the idea of just
leaving.
Just making that step is something I know myself. Like, I know I wouldn't be able to take that step. And I think, especially at that age, 17, going to a hostel and being confident enough to be open to people. And I know that Peyton doesn't realise that she is that way. She doesn't see that.
She doesn't see it as confidence at all.
No, exactly. But and that's kind of what she has to learn, is like, not everybody can do that. Like, they're calling you bold because you're bold. Like, it's like, but she just doesn't see it at all. But yes, that ability to go into a place like that and be open to people is quite an amazing thing, really. But yes, it is the perfect environment. I've only ever been with other people when I've been in a hostel, never by myself.
We're traveling with other people, so you didn't travel by yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, I've traveled, when I've been in hostels, I've been with my best friend. We went interrailing around Europe, and I've been with my sister, which was in Canada, but I was never on my own. So it's a slightly different experience, I think, when you are with a preset person, rather than, because you do when I mean, we talked about this, you've been in hostels too, is like, there are lone travelers, and they are really happy to, like, they'll bring cards to the table of like, oh, do you want to have a card game or something? So there are a lot of them, but no, I wasn't one myself.
In terms of whether, I mean, I would, if I, at Peyton's age, I think I would have liked thinking about it and maybe dreaming about being the person who would get on the plane, but never in a million years would I actually get on the plane.
I don't think it would even really have crossed my mind, like, as a possibility. Yeah, like, that's what I'll do.
Exactly. It would have to be an idea that someone else gave me, or I read somewhere. But yeah, I wouldn't have been able to get on the plane either. And I think, reading this as well, and actually talking to my other half who was reading it, like, everyone has, well, at least everyone, most people have a traveling story or a hostel story, and it's one of those things that really connects people because of that shared experience, which, I mean, that's something that Peyton doesn't see or isn't aware of when she goes into it, because, like you said, she's not thinking about it from a friendship perspective. And then what's really interesting is that she almost kind of runs away from that because she doesn't trust it. It's that whole idea, and then she's by herself, and I think there is that conversation around, or there are a few of the characters who talk about what it's like to travel by yourself, and it can be quite lonely. But then it's, I know, Peyton's going through a lot of different things that she's not even really aware of, as we've said. Knowing herself. What I actually really like is that, if you don't mind me saying, there isn't really a point in the novel where she doesn't actually say that she doesn't like herself. It's more about how other people have responded to her or interacted with her. So I quite like that there wasn't that, it hadn't got to that level from her own perspective. But what I quite liked was, she starts to make these friends and then goes in the other direction and then spends that time by herself. and it was the way that the situation that you placed her in. I mean, I'm assuming you had gone to the different places that you took her to. Was it intentional? Some of them. Was it intentional that you made the actual landmass smaller and smaller as you went along the way?
That was kind of, I really wanted her to be where I was. I really wanted her to be on Vancouver Island. But of course, like, that is the wrong direction. Like, she arrives in Canada planning to go towards Toronto, towards like the east side. Mm-hmm. And I was far west. I was in Vancouver Island. So I was like, oh, I have to get her to Vancouver Island. And then I'd been to Salt Spring Island. Like, I really wanted to go to Salt Spring Island just because I've been there and I want to get it on the page, you know, in the way that you do. So that's kind of why that happened. But actually, when I was writing, it did actually feel quite a natural thing. It's like, oh, she's trying to make this more manageable. Mm-hmm. She's going somewhere smaller and smaller and smaller, before she then embarks on the gigantic mass that is Canada. But yeah, that was because I just wanted her to be places I'd been, and most of the places I'd been were on Vancouver Island, so that's why she spends time there.
Do you have any hostel experiences that you would like to share with everyone that aren't in the book, or any kind of funny traveling story?
Well, I never met a group of friends like Peyton does in hostels, again because I wasn't on my own, so I think I wasn't trying in the same way. But when my sister, when I finished studying in Canada, my sister came to meet me, and we went traveling up and down the west coast of Canada and America. And she arrived in Vancouver. She met me in Vancouver. We went to this hostel, and it was just the worst hostel. It was awful, and we'd like prepaid for like a week, and it was that kind of situation where we got there and I was like, we can't stay here. And we can't stay here, but we didn't have money to go anywhere else. And we were trying to figure out what we could do. And then I ended up calling a friend of mine who was Canadian. And this is just peak nice Canada. He was like, oh no, I'll come and get you. So he came and got us from this hotel, drove us to stay in his incredible friend's house, which was like right on the side of like a mountain, and it was amazing. We stayed there for a couple of days with him, and then he was like, oh, you should see more of British Columbia. And so he drove us through British Columbia, which was hours and hours, like, you know how big Canada is. Hours.
Yeah, there is a map in the book, and obviously the journey sounds really epic, but then I see how far they got. I'm like, oh wow, they really didn't get very far.
That's the thing. You're traveling for a really long time, you don't really get anywhere. But yeah, so we were right in the middle of rural British Columbia, which is where his parents lived. Mm-hmm. So we ended up spending a week together. It wasn't planned. And it was just like, oh, you need help, of course. And how can I make this better? How can I show you, like, oh, I don't want you to think this is what Canada is like. Your sister's just arrived. You've been here for a year, but she doesn't know. So what can we do? Oh, let's have a road trip through British Columbia in, I think it was June. And it was just the most incredible thing. And it was just the hostel was awful. But I'm so glad it was, because we just had the most amazing time, which we would never have had.
Yes.
So yeah, that was, it's a great story. It starts with a bad hostel.
No, it starts, well, you go then anyway is up from there. No, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. Not wanting to generalize, saying everyone has really nice travel stories or has like funny hostel stories. I suppose it's probably something, given the age that we are and the people that we knew from school or university, was kind of the thing. It's, yeah, I didn't actually go into railing, and it's one of the things I really wish I had done. But I did.
Still can. There's no reason not to. Well, maybe not right now.
Well, yeah, we'll get through a few things.
Yeah.
Before public transportation, but there we go. We won't mention that. But yeah, no, that's and I don't know, just there's lots of other ways to do it, of course. But I was going to say the one I first experienced Canada when I was, to be fair, much younger, when I was 11, and someone thought, oh, we're going to go and stay in this cottage by a lake. So we have a very British idea of a cottage by a lake, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
And then the Canadian idea of a cottage by a lake is one of the most, I still remember it now, one of the most beautiful wood-paneled, air-conditioned houses, insulated, like with this decking and this huge lake. And I was like, this isn't, maybe just speak to people in Europe, like in France and Spain, because cottages and that's not how it works. Yeah. It was really, really nice. And it was, and also everyone in Canada is absolutely lovely. And you said at the beginning why people would wonder about why you chose Canada. And I actually quite like that you did. I think it felt slightly different, given the fact that, you know, the kind of countries that people talk about, though they've gone to visit. It kind of felt like Canada was a little bit different, going in a slightly different direction, you know, physically around the planet. But I quite liked that. Just to let everyone know, you can share your questions with Sara. You can either pop them into the comment box over on YouTube, or if you are watching on your computer and you have your phone to hand, or if you can just pop up a quick email, you can email questions@wigtownbookfestival.com. Just pop your question in there and we'll be able to come to that towards the end of our chat. But, you know, time is flying and we have so much to talk about. I was wondering, can we talk a little bit about the different people that she meets when she's traveling, or do you want to? Yeah, there's such a wonderful group of people, and they're all so different, and they all come from different, you know, just from their ages and the countries and the different experiences that they have, and the way that you, I suppose, just kind of drip feed her, the way that she gets to know them all, just little bit by little bit, just the way that because they have. Is it all right if we mention that they do have a little bit of a road trip?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Can we mention that she gets public transport? Yes, of course. So it's fair to say, so Peyton and the friends that she meet, they go on a trip together and they drive across Canada together, and it's obviously living and traveling in a very, very small space that you'll get to know each other really, really well. Did you see that as something that Peyton needed as a character, or and at the same time maybe a great way of being able to get her to go to certain bits of Canada that you really wanted to see that matched up with your experience of it, or was it something else you just thought it was a really nice idea?
I actually don't remember, because I was trying. I remember it was quite difficult to figure out exactly what she was actually going to do in Canada, and then trying to and I knew that I think I knew that I wanted them to be in an RV and I wanted them to go on this road trip, because that's just a really nice, even just from a storytelling perspective, it gives you structure.
It does.
It's always nice to me, because I mean I could just write conversations for days, so it's like I need to have some structure. So it's like, but the logistics of that road trip, honestly, hours and hours of maps and websites and talking to different tourist information places, and
you literally had to double check like how far they would get in a certain, so that this is
which
the very
roads would they take, how long would it take, where are the RV camps, would these RV camps be open at this time of year? Just honestly, the level of detail. And it was because for me, I want things to be accurate, always want things to be accurate. And also that voice in my head was just like, someone on Goodreads will say that road is closed in October. So that was just right. I have to make sure this is all accurate. Like I can't have them, because it is October, November time, and that is an unusual time to visit Canada, as they say in the book, because it's not on season. So I was quite aware that a lot of the tourist places that you would usually go might be closed. So I had to check. But yeah, I think it was kind of a structural thing in a lot of ways, and also because it does lend itself so well to. And I needed to know, like, how would she get from this place to this place, because Canada's very big and she's not going to have an endless supply of money. So it actually solved a lot of things for her, and it solved a lot of things for me too as a writer. So it did make things easier.
Yeah, I really like that. You're like, I'm definitely future-proofing this, so Google's a road. But yeah, everyone, insight into a writer's commitment to realistic road trips. You heard it here. Try saying that quick 10 times. I realized how many R's are in that sentence.
There was a great website where you can say where you want to go, how many stops you want to make, and just generally what your budget is, and it will map you out where your stops will be, how long the journey takes, and how long it will take if you stop here and if you stop here, and where you might go in each place. It's brilliant. So that really helped.
If only Peyton had found that on page 1, it could have been a very different story. Yeah, so coming to the different characters that she meets and they spend time with, you have really nice, I suppose there's a lot of different backgrounds, different countries, different cultures, and everyone kind of shares different things along the way. That's something that I suppose, not wanting to generalize at all, but you do tend that can be something you experience when you're traveling as well, when people share different stories, different anecdotes with everyone. But of course there comes that point where you kind of tips into the slightly more personal stuff. And like, with obviously staying in the RV, they're all going to, start sharing, not necessarily oversharing, of course, but it was a really nice environment to be able to build their relationships together. And I don't know, would you see that you might revisit a Peyton story in future years and just check in with all different characters and see what they've been up to?
I mean, the funny thing is that Peyton actually came along because she was an adult character in this book I started writing, and then start things and stop them all the time. And this is one of them. And she was the adult. She was an adult, and she was the adult best friend of the protagonist. And her backstory was that when she was a teenager, she'd been horribly bullied. She'd had a terrible time in school. She made these friends that turned out to not be very good friends. And so she took her dad's credit card and got on a plane. And when I was writing this, I was like, oh, that would make a great YA. And so then when it came very clear to me that this book wasn't going to work, this project that I was starting wasn't going to work, which also happens a lot, I kept coming back to this idea of Peyton as a teenager and that story that she had. So that's where she came from. So actually my first impression of her was as an adult.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah.
So especially like I know, I don't know about everybody, but as adults, but I know about her and Beezy.
You've already got that story there. I don't know. I mean, there might be a space for it now because everyone will want to know how she's getting on. You might have to do a switch and make her the protagonist. That's really fascinating that then you kind of started backtracking. Did you see yourself picking up that other book, or you don't think you'll go back to that one? You just borrowed Peyton?
I think so. Yeah, sometimes it just takes you a longer circuitous route to get to where the story is, and that happened to be that one paragraph of backstory in this book that never made it. Was like, that's what I needed, and I needed to write all of that to find Destination Anywhere. So I mean, I wouldn't say no to. I think if I was going to do that book, it would be very different because Peyton now has her own book, which of course changes things. So, but yeah, maybe one day. But I'm glad of what it got me, which was this book.
So Peyton has, I suppose what's really quite nice as well is that while she's traveling, she doesn't necessarily have a bad relationship with her family and her parents. I very much enjoy the text messages with her brother. He's great. Sibling conversations spot on, where it's like, and especially with the way that you have Peyton to kind of reflect on the fact that her brother's treating her like an equal for the first time, which is a big deal. Sorry, can you remember the age difference again? Is it 4 years or is it?
I think, yeah, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, because he's already at university, isn't he?
Yes, yeah, he's in his second or third year, yeah.
Second or third year, yeah. But I think that probably makes it different. It's the way that she says, at one point, she says, should I come back? And he's, and was it okay? Should I come back? And then it's just the yes and the no. And he's telling her, just to keep on going because he knows why she has to do it. And which is quite interesting from her perspective as to maybe thinking that he hadn't really noticed as much. So there's only very little that we see of her interaction with her brother, to be honest. It's just through those messages. Was that something that you always wanted to be able to kind of shine a light on, the fact that she wasn't an only child, but where were her allies? And he was.
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting giving if your protagonist is an only child or if they have siblings and what their relationship is like as siblings. And I always find it really interesting. Just sibling relationships are fascinating to me anyway. But with this book, I was quite conscious of what people think about bullied people and what they imagine them to be like. Which is, again, like what you were saying earlier about Peyton. It's not that she doesn't like herself.
No.
I wanted that to be, like, I don't want her to be this, what you might think or assume, which is that there's nothing wrong with Peyton. She knows there's not actually anything wrong with her. She has all these insecurities about various things, but she's actually quite confident in herself. She's happy spending time by herself. She's actually quite a confident person. So I wanted to just in small ways, just kind of challenge those assumptions people have, which I mean, even I've had various conversations with people about bullying because of this book, and you do hear it. You hear the things people think about, because I think I've actually put this in the book, which is, you think about who was bullied in your school when you were young, and everybody can remember. They can remember who it was, if it was them or if it was somebody else, but they always remember. And like, what did you tell yourself at the time? about that person. And like, it's very uncomfortable talking about it as an adult, but I think you have to be honest about these things. And when you were a teenager, you let that happen. Most of us did. And there were things that you told yourself to kind of make it okay in your own head, and you kind of bring that into adulthood. So I wanted to kind of try and challenge that as much as I could, and because obviously a lot of adult readers read YA, and they read it in a very different way, and I wanted to confront them in the same way that I was trying to confront myself in the books, because it's very easy to be like, well, I wasn't a bully. I don't remember who the bullies were, but there is a spectrum between those two things, like the bullied and the bullies. And I really wanted to have Peyton be not what you would necessarily expect a victim of bullying to be. And that was why I didn't have a reason why, like something about her that was, this is why she was bullied. She was just unlucky, which is what most people are, maybe everybody. She was just unlucky. She was just the person who made a silly little mistake on her first day of school, and then that just snowballed, and she wasn't able to deal with it because she was a child, and it kind of got worse and worse from there, which is often what happens. So I wanted to do that. And coming back to her brother.
No, it's fine.
I think that was all a part of it, like her relationship with her parents, and having a distant but supportive older brother who has been given a reason to see her, as you said, as, oh, you're a person and you're actually quite cool, let's be friends, but who has always been supportive, because I have an older brother and an older sister, and I love them and been lucky that we've had a close relationship. So I think always with my fictional siblings, they were always quite nice. Like I was talking to a writer friend about it, and she was like, oh no, I hate my siblings. Like, why are your siblings always so nice? And I said, because mine are. So I think that kind of is the kind of thing that comes through in the book. So I couldn't imagine having an antagonistic sibling. But I think it would have been too easy, I think, to have the parents be the baddies.
Yes.
For them to have such a, and I did think about that when I was figuring out Peyton and the story and where it was going to go, and what is the relationship like with her parents, because you have to be a specific kind of parent and child and have a specific kind of relationship where somebody could do something like Peyton does. Not just taking their credit card, but knowing that on some level that they would let her go, and them on some level trusting her that they can. And
the idea of the consequences, if they were super strict, then maybe she wouldn't go.
Exactly. Example, like she needed to have had a sense of independence come from somewhere.
Yes. So
it didn't make sense to have these authoritarian parents who would try and drag her back again, because if they were, she'd never have gone. No. So it was figuring out that relationship was quite important. But and then of course, because no spoilers, but because of the way the story does develop, the relationship with the parents is quite important.
Yes, it is. Yes. I have to say, the dad email, it's such a dad email. It's spot on. I read it. I'm like, oh my, it's almost like my dad is writing this email. I felt like I was being told off. Like, oh no. It's the most dad email that you could have done. That was very spot on. Something we haven't mentioned about Peyton is that she is a really brilliant artist, and you have these lovely illustrations peppered throughout. I really like the style. I think it fits so perfectly.
I love them. They're amazing.
Checking Christiani, I can't even begin to pronounce her surname.
Furches, I do believe. Furches. I think that's how you say it.
Really lovely illustrations. Illustrators are fantastic. And it just adds so much to her kind of character. I actually really like the one where there's the island and it's almost her name, and then she does the illustration of herself around it. But it's just, was there a particular decision as to why you thought she would have that kind of illustrative way? Was it about how Peyton actually sees the world to help her make sense of things? But it seems to work really well with her.
Yes, I think that was one of the things that came from knowing Peyton as an adult, is that she's the adult character as an illustrator.
She just become an illustrator.
I'm sounding like, oh well, yes, well this is just the person that she was, so I had to write it, really. But that is how it felt. Like, oh well. No,
I understand it. Yeah, because she's a real person.
Yeah. So that's why, it's because she was already that person, and I couldn't imagine writing her in any other way, because she was an artist. And it's the the art that really sustains her through the more difficult times in her life, and this grand idea that she has, which is to go to Canada, travel from one end to the other by herself with just a backpack and her sketchpad. It's like this really key thing that she has. So it was always going to be a part of it, the sketchpad, and the fact that she was going to draw as she went, and that she was going to come out of it. I don't think this is a spoiler to say that.
No.
She was going to come out of this with essentially a portfolio of what she can do and what she's really good at, and to kind of re-find that love of art that she has. And that's going to be so important in the rest of her life. So yeah, that was always there. And then it was my editor who said, well, why don't we actually have it illustrated? And I was like, yes. So that's how that happened. So yeah, I'm just beside myself when I realized I was going to be able to have an illustrated YA book. It was very exciting.
That was really nice. It certainly adds a great deal to her as a character. It's just, I suppose that's the thing. She talks about how different people respond to her artwork. So people who say, oh, can you draw me? Or, oh, you're so good. And it almost, so for example, the line where she says when they're traveling together, they just stop complimenting her and her drawing, because it's like they've said it now, so they don't. But obviously there are people that she's encountered who kind of keep laboring on about it, and it's just, yeah, just leave her to it kind of thing. It's quite interesting seeing the different ways that people interact with her, and that idea of being able to create art as well. So I thought that just added something else as well. So did you write this in 2020?
No, I wrote it yeah, just before, so 2019, and we are actually on quite I had to write it very quickly. This is the irony. I mean, everyone has their ironies of 2020, but I wrote the first draft of Destination Anywhere in 8 weeks.
Wow,
the fastest I'd ever written anything, because we had to hit this schedule. So wrote it really fast, edited it really fast, and then the pandemic happened. Oh my God. And it was delayed anyway. Yeah, it was like, it was a real lesson in, like, you know, don't beat yourself into the ground, because something's going to come along. Like, you can't control these things. It's just let it. I mean, it's great because the book is what it is, and it could only have been that way because of, you know, I always think if you were doing something different, the book would be different. And I'm happy with the book. Like, I really, actually, I think I can say this, I really love this book. So I'm glad. I feel
that Peyton means quite a lot to you.
I think she, and they all do, but yeah, I think she does. I do have a particular love of Peyton. I'm very proud of her, I think, in a way that doesn't.
I am too. Now that you've told me like a little bit more about the fact that, you know, we know that a little bit more about where she ends up. Yeah, I'm very proud of her as well. So this is your fifth YA novel, as we said earlier, and you have alluded to the fact that you have written something with Peyton as an adult in. So does that mean that you may branch out into other areas? You might do adult or other things? Is there anything that you might feel that you want to tie your hand to, that you want to share? Totally fine if you say no. I have secrets and I'm keeping them.
I hope so. Is the answer. I hope so. I would like to write something adult one day, but it just has to be the right thing. And like with this experimental thing I did, it wasn't the right thing yet. And my hope is that I will find what that right thing is. But yeah, one day, hopefully. But I mean, YA is where I am most comfortable, and still feel really lucky to be able to write YA. So not leaving that anytime soon.
Yeah, no, of course. And actually, if we're talking about 2019, you won the YA Book Prize for Goodbye Perfect. It must feel like it was a little while ago.
It does. A very long time ago, yeah. That was good. I was enjoyed that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't know, people can ask questions going like, oh, how did it feel to win the YA Book Prize? You know, was it a plan? You're probably like, well, no, it wasn't really at all. But do you feel, as a young adult fiction writer, and, you know, the fact that you've actually been, you know, you have 5 books, you've been part of the young adult publishing industry for a while now, that it's something that prizes and I suppose acknowledgement even for different teenage experiences, the way that they're represented within publishing, like different things like that are really important for young adult fiction in general. I suppose just generally what your thoughts were about it. Yeah,
I mean, I think the problem with YA, and this has been the problem for years, is just that it's just not taken very seriously, because it's for teenagers and because it's primarily for teenage girls. And as we know, unfortunately, in culture, anything that's prized by teenage girls is less valued culturally. So I think YA is always going to struggle with that, while it's, and like I do, and like most of the writers I know, while they're centering girls' stories primarily, that's the payoff. It's very unlikely that it's going to be taken as seriously as even children's fiction, which I know has similar issues, just because it's for children. But I think stuff like the YA Book Prize and having kind of prizes that gets it more into the public eye, I suppose, in a way, it's all stuff that can help towards just giving it a little bit more of a presence within wider culture, because, you know, like in newspapers you get coverage for all kinds of things, and they don't cover things in YA. Like I remember this quite clearly, because there was an article in, I think it was Guardian Books, about collaborative novels.
Yes.
And talking about the process of collaborative novels, and this was, I think, 6 months after Flawed came out, which is, you know, 7 YA authors who were, you know, I feel very lucky to have been among them, but they were 7 authors, were quite at the top of the YA field at the time, collaborating on a novel. And it's, I'm not saying that it had to have been in there, but I thought the fact that it wasn't even mentioned because the person wasn't aware of it, like it wasn't a snub at all. No. It was just not even on the radar. And I was like, why not? Like any other area of fiction where you have that 7 authors collaborating on one book. Absolutely. And it's an article about successful authors collaborating on a novel. It just seemed like that was one of the times when I was like, oh, this is really a problem. It's just, it's not as easy as just saying, oh, you're snubbing us. It's just not even aware
about it.
So yes, I think just, that was a very long way of saying, I think the things like prizes, like the YA Book Prize, being supported by the Hay Festival, really gives them more of a, and the book seller and everything. It just, it helps, everything helps just to bring it out a bit more and just be like, this isn't just for teenage girls. You know, there are amazing books here, like adults, you don't have to be a teenage girl to read them. Like you know, you and I both know there's so much for adults in YA. It's just, it's not just what people think it is, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of accidentally fell into chairing and moderating young adult and middle grade events, mainly because I wanted to fight to protect their space, because people would say, oh, but why are you reading Patrick Ness? Why don't you go and read, you know, something and insert adult author here? I'm not going to pitch 2 authors against each other. I realized that I was saying that. And I'm like, well, no, it's completely valid. And actually, you know, maybe even thinking about Peyton's experience and going through school, you know, there's lots of other different stories that look at how people can survive those significant moments in our lives where they are actually quite traumatic, and maybe we're not in a position to talk to people about them. And, you know, Peyton finds comfort in her artwork. Maybe there are other people who find comfort in books or in, you know, in other forms of artistic expression, or, you know, or through sport or whatever. There's lots of different ways, coping mechanisms that we all have. And, you know, that's absolutely a role that YA books serve. So, yeah. If anyone has anything else to say, send them to us, everyone. We'll we'll give them a talking to. I was going to say, sorry, I had a perfect question and that was blown out of my head. No, it was absolutely fine. With YA in general, I think this follows on quite nicely to what you were saying, because it links back to elements of Destination Anywhere as well. Diversity and representation within YA is an ongoing conversation. It's a very important conversation. And I did really like, whilst it's Peyton's story and she is white, middle class, British girl, there are the other characters offer kind of insight and help her see what their lives are, a little bit of what their lives are like where they are. And I don't know if we want to specifically talk about certain characters without giving any elements away, but I think that it felt really, it worked really well with those elements in there. And I suppose I wanted to really think about, you know, there's obviously as a white female British author, how you felt about, you know, diversity within YA, and, you know, maybe the spaces where maybe kind of white Western writers can actually help to support diversity representation without taking space from those writers who are actually trying to put other voices on the page to be able to, as we said, help people from a variety of different backgrounds find those touchstones and find those characters who can help them through different experiences.
Well, I think that it's a difficult one, because I think everybody has a different answer. And I don't want to say because every answer is valid, because I don't think it is. I think some answers are really not, and really contribute to the problem. But there are people do have different responses to it, and different ways. And I think just the not taking up space that isn't yours is probably quite a crucial one. And so, like, just to try and recognize what the world is in what you're writing, while not trying to, like, that, you know, as a white middle class female, it's I can't fix any of these things, and it's not, you know, that's not my role. But I have to make sure that I'm reflecting the world as it is, as honestly as possible, as authentically as possible, and make sure you're not populating your stories with everybody who is just like you, because that's not how the world is. Or if you are doing that, to recognize that you're doing that and to put that in the text. Like, because Peyton is quite one of the issues that she has, because I don't think she's blameless at all, but she is so insular, she's so reflective of herself, that she doesn't think enough about other people. And she doesn't see herself in relation to other people enough, and that's where there's a disconnect sometimes with the people that she meets, because she's making assumptions and she's assuming things that they will think. So she has this conversation with one of her old friends, and her friend visits her house and says, "I didn't realize you had money." And she thinks, well, I don't have money, and not even realizing, even in retrospect, I think really, I think she hasn't quite grasped it, is she's so in her own head, which we all are, that she doesn't realize at all what her friend Flick, what she's actually saying. And she just doesn't, because she's so blinded by her own experience. And that is the problem. It's allowing yourself to be blinded by your own experience, and to not have that moment of reflection, to think, why is this being said? How can this make a difference to me in my life, and what assumptions do I have about other people that are actually going to be quite damaging? So yes, I think there are stories that you are suited to writing or not suited to writing, and I don't think the solution for white authors is to rush in and try and write all of the stories that we need. No, you need to step back and you make sure that there's room for those stories. And I think that's really all we can do, is represent the world as authentically as possible, and leave room. Step back when you need to step back, which is harder than hard. It's a hard thing to do, but recognize that and try really. Try.
And, you know, even if those are the questions that you're asking yourself as a writer, an aspiring writer, then those are the right questions to really be saying, you know, is this your story to tell? Or how can you, you know, show the world as it is, and reflect it as realistically as possible. So I realize that that's always going to be a tough question to ask, but I think where YA is concerned, it's always an important conversation to keep having. Oh my, we're almost at 5 to 8, everyone. Time has flown by, and you know, I don't know about you, but I've been having a great time. You do have a few minutes if you would like to share any questions with us. Again, you can email them in at questions@wigtownbookfestival.com, or you can plop them into the comment box over on YouTube. Don't be shy. No question is a bad question. We love them all. Even, why did you become a writer? I think that's always a great one. And everyone has a different reason. So, I mean, I think we can have one last one, which is a little bit of a hypothetical one. If Peyton was going to go and visit another country after she's had her epic Canadian adventure, what could possibly compare? Do you have, I'm going to put you on the spot now. Do you know where you would send her and what she would do? Would she do the Trans-Siberian Railway, for example, or?
Oh, I think she would love that. But South America, I think is where she would go. That was one of the, that was where I thought she would go. And the reason I didn't send her to South America is because I've never been to South America.
I was going to say, because you haven't been to South America.
Fundamentally, I don't think you should try and it comes back to the same thing in a very different way.
Doesn't it, actually? And see, I see what I did there accidentally.
You can write about somewhere you've never been, but why would you?
So would you
Why?
want to go visit South America to experience? I mean, it's a great, you could just be like, yeah, I'm just going to chalk this up to research to go to South
I
America.
did consider that, I'm not going to lie. But
I mean,
I have to write this in 8 weeks. I don't have time to go to Peru.
No, but you could be like, can I just have like a 6-month deadline, guys? I'm just going to go do some research. I'll be right back. I think that would be great. Anyway, sorry. Everyone knows now. we're not alone. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing Peyton with us, and thank you for sharing Destination Anywhere, and also for joining me to have this lovely chat on a Sunday evening with Wigtown YA, and hopefully next time we'll be able to have a chat in person.
It would be very nice.
Yeah. Don't forget, everyone, that you can purchase Destination Anywhere in the Wigtown Festival bookshop, so do go and have a look at that. Also, you can purchase it from your local bookshop, bookshop.org, or get in your local library, all those wonderful places. Do also remember just to say, for this year, Wigtown Book Festival is of course an organisation that runs on event income, and in any normal year more than half of the event income comes from ticket sales. Of course, this year, with a hybrid offer and also a much reduced programme, they are still trying to cover their costs. This means that any donations from you as our wonderful audience is always brilliantly appreciated, especially those of you who have booked tickets for free. Of course, this is only if you are in a position to do so. You know, the Wigtown Book Festival take access very seriously, and it's absolutely wonderful that you've all been able to join us. And if you are in a position to do so, you can find details of how to donate on our homepage, wigtownbookfestival.com. So thank you very much, Sara. Thank you, Wigtown Book Festival, and thank you everyone for joining us. I think we have to wrap it up because I'm coming up to time. You never know, we're going to be kicked out of our little Zoom meeting, and here we go, Destination Anywhere. I highly recommend that you join Peyton on her epic adventure. It's making me want to go to Canada. I now want to.
You should. It's great.
I feel like I'm slightly too old for hostels now. There comes a point. Fun fact before we go, everyone: the best character I met in a hostel was in a hostel in Budapest. She was a former South Korean officer and was like describing the barracks that they used to serve in, and she was like, you think these are small? Let me tell you. And just everyone was like, oh my god, they were very, very close. She had some brilliant stories, but just a fantastic character. She had some, like, she had the smallest bag ever, and apparently she just traveled across so many countries because she was just resourceful. It's like, hats off to you. You're made for this. So there you go. That was my little travel anecdote for the end there. I hope you have enjoyed this. Do go and meet Peyton, and thank you again, Sara. Thank you. Bye, everyone.